What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Endzone to Endzone, the pod in which Ahjuxue, discuss topics in the NFL universe, both on and off the football field. So this week has been a very exciting week because of the NFL draft. There's also been other NFL drama that has occurred, and we will dig through all that. So tune in and let's get it. So earlier this week, the Seattle Seahawks traded defensive end Frank Clark to the Kansas City Chiefs. This came abruptly after the Seahawks franchise tagged Frank Clark and then had signed Russell Wilson to his massive contract. With that, obviously, the Seahawks were not able to sign Frank Clark to a big contract that Frank Clark wanted. Hence, the trade happened. Now, the Chiefs, who are in dire need of a pass rushing help, traded their first round and third round of the 2019 draft pick, which is this year, and their 2020 second round draft pick of next year for Frank Clark and the Seahawks' third round of this year's draft pick. Frank Clark, who has compiled 33 to 36 sacks over his 3 seasons with the Seahawks, will now be considered as the anchor rusher for the Kansas City Chiefs for the oncoming seasons. And why the oncoming seasons? Well, because the Chiefs have also secured Frank Clark with a 5-year, $105.5 million deal, with $63.5 of that million dollars guaranteed. Now, I'm not surprised by the Seahawks trading Frank Clark, considering that he's been one of the better pass rushers in the past 2 years, and now that pass rushers are receiving about $100 million annually. Not annually, but overall. There was really no way the Seahawks could keep him. But I am a little confused at how the Seahawks were able to give him a big contract, since they had to get rid of so many bad ones this offseason. But then again, it could just be the fact that I did not keep a close enough eye to the Chiefs' offseason moves. So if any of you Chiefs fans out there, I really don't mean this in a harsh way. I was a little confused. But I'm very happy in a way that you guys were able to get something. So now, it was a smart move for the Chiefs, though, to attain Frank Clark, as they lost both D Ford and Justin Houston over this offseason, especially D Ford after he broke out, and he was one of your former first-round picks. And as for Frank Clark, he ultimately just wanted to be somewhere that he was wanted and appreciated, and the Chiefs are doing that exactly for him. So shouts out to Frank Clark for getting his due. Next, we got Josh Rosen. So as you guys know, Josh Rosen has had quite the start to his NFL career, and I do not mean that in a good way at all. Now, if we're just looking from sliding the 2018 draft, and I say sliding with quotes, to saying that, quoted, everyone's gonna pay, right, to playing with the worst offense in the 2018 season, and now he's no longer a part of the Arizona Cardinals. He's been traded to the Miami Dolphins. So not only is he playing for a quote-unquote wrecked organization with almost no vision, Josh Rosen is now going to face the Bill Belichick's Patriots twice a season and directly compete against Sam Darnold and Josh Allen. How about that, right? It's Tom Brady versus the rookie quarterbacks of last year's draft. Literally, 3 of them, 3 out of the 4 are all in his division. Again, Josh Rosen is not without fault, since he talked such a big game after being drafted. And, leading up to that draft, when he was drafted, he was listed by many analysts as a brilliant quarterback, and somehow failed miserably to being able to make reads, timing passes, and even just understanding fundamentals. Guys, if you don't believe me, you can watch his games. I'm not lying. So if you go back and you watch it, there's a lot of things that he definitely needed to improve on. But at least for now, he has now been replaced by the younger Kyler Murray at Arizona, and he will be at least given a shot in Miami, considering he can beat out Ryan Fitzpatrick, or as we like to call him, Fitzmagic, right? So if he still does want to prove the league wrong, he not only has to win the starting job, but he also has to turn the Dolphins around. And if not, he's just going to be another bust quarterback on that long list, and kind of will, in a way, live in infamy for his brazen 2018 draft quote, right, guys? He's gonna, if he fails, everyone's gonna replay that video on him over and over and over. But I hope things work out for him, and I hope that he's able to actually do something for the Miami Dolphins, because they desperately need it. Now, guys, I'm not gonna be covering the entire NFL draft all in one go, because that's just too much information to cover at once. So what I will do is team by team grading of their draft picks. And like, I'm no analyst, all right, but I feel that I'm gonna give my opinion, and I think that hopefully that can help you guys shape your opinions, because we don't necessarily need to be analysts to be able to decide on whether certain players or positions drafted at certain times is a good pick or not. So I'm going to just literally start right from the top, and I'm starting with the Arizona Cardinals. Now, in the first round, the Arizona Cardinals drafted, everybody knows now, Kyler Murray, quarterback of Oklahoma. Now, I gave this draft grade on this first round for them a B+ grade. This comes from the fact that the Cardinals at this time did have Josh Rosen. They didn't know how Josh Rosen was going to do under Cliff Kingsbury's system. So because you don't know, then you should at least try. And I felt like the Cardinals had much more important positions to grab rather than just quarterback at this pick. I mean, come on, they're their number one pick. I mean, they definitely needed a defensive end, defensive tackle, linebacker, defensive back, offensive lineman, wide receiver, tight end. Literally, they needed everything but quarterback and running back, and they went quarterback. So I give it a B+ grade just because I think Kyler Murray is very talented. So I think he can do it, but I couldn't give it an A, knowing that the Cardinals already had drafted a quarterback last year. Now, in their round 2, they drafted Byron Murphy, the cornerback from Washington. I gave this draft grade a B+ grade as well. It's not a bad pick, but not the best pick either, considering that this spot, there was a lot of talented players still around, and they decided to go with the cornerback. Now, they weren't trying to fill the position that potentially could be left open because of Patrick Peterson, but they definitely, I feel like, could have gotten another, at least a defensive lineman or something with this pick, instead of going for cornerback. Also in the second round, they drafted Andy Isabella, wide receiver from Massachusetts. So this guy actually got drafted later in the second round, because the Cardinals had 2 second-round picks. And I gave that pick an A- grade. And it's because the guy is a very good pick for the system they plan to run with the air raid system. Now, although his body size is small, he's considered by many as a fearless route runner, which means he can go through the middle of the field, which is always a great thing. And the best part about this pick is that it definitely targets a need for them where they would really need it for the air raid system, because they have Larry Fitzgerald, who's really old. They have, and that's about really it. All the other guys, no one really is threatened by them. So if Andy Isabella can work out, it's going to be a great thing for them. Now in the third round, the Cardinals drafted Zach Allen, defensive end from Boston College. I gave this pick a C- grade because even though it addresses a spot of need for them, the Cardinals, think about it, the Cardinals could have gotten Nick Bosa or Quinnen Williams or Josh Allen in the first round. You guys kind of get what I'm saying? They could have gotten those guys who were top tier players at that position, and instead they waited till the third round to draft one. Now, this guy definitely is not a day one plug-in and will be a project because he really wasn't a standout in college. But there was something good about him in college. And when I looked at his statistics, it was shown that he was versatile. He got sacks, interceptions, pass breakups, and blocked kicks. So he has a really high motor, which proves to be beneficial for the Cardinals. It will, because he has a high motor. And the guy is a pretty big dude. So it definitely was an okay pick. In the 4th round, the Cardinals drafted Hakeem Butler, wide receiver from Iowa State. I gave this pick an A grade, just like how I gave Andy Isabella an A grade. This pick in the 4th round was a great pick for the Cardinals. This guy, if he works out, can become the successor to Larry Fitzgerald. Big dude, big body frame. He literally, if you just look at the measurables and his combine, he almost mirrors Larry Fitzgerald. So if Hakeem Butler works out, the Cardinals might just get their Larry Fitzgerald successor, which is great. Looking into the 5th round, the Cardinals drafted Deontay Thompson, safety from Alabama. Now, I gave this a C grade, although it's not a bad pick. The Cardinals could have went offensive line to help their new young quarterback, but instead they decided to draft a safety. I mean, they are in need of one. But remember this, guys, in the 2nd round, right, where they drafted Byron Murphy, they could have drafted a safety up there because there were some really good, talented safety guys that the league really liked that were also drafted by other teams. So they could have swapped it in a way, and you're kind of starting to see how I'm looking at their draft and grading. It's almost like they draft the right positions just in the wrong spots. Going into the 6th round, the Cardinals drafted Keyshawn Johnson, wide receiver, Fresno State. I gave this an F grade. And I don't mean this to be mean to Fresno State players, but for the Cardinals, drafting another wide receiver at this spot was really a wasted pick. They had already drafted 2 wide receivers prior to drafting Keyshawn, and he would really just end up being a guy in the depth. Who knows if he's even going to stay on the team. And the Cardinals really could have just drafted offensive line, like I said, right? They could have just drafted another offensive lineman, but instead they took another wide receiver. Don't know why, but I'm not the guy making the picks. So last round, in the 7th round, the Cardinals had 3 picks. The first one they drafted was Joshua Miles, tackle from Morgan State. I gave this grade a B+, because they picked up a guy that has a big body frame, and his combine numbers were typical for an offensive lineman. But what does worry me a bit is that he didn't participate in the bench reps. So whether he was hurt or he didn't want to showcase whether he was weak or strong, the Cardinals will really be hoping that he has a good technique and is a hard worker. Because offensive linemen, regardless of what round you draft them, they're going to be on the team because teams need them for depth. So this guy definitely is a depth pick, but they finally got an offensive lineman on a draft, which is should have happened two positions ago. Next, they drafted Michael Dogby. I'm not sure if I said that right, and I don't mean to say it wrong on purpose. But he's a defensive tackle from Temple. I gave this a C+ grade. Definitely a depth guy, just like Deontay Thompson. But I feel like they could have used in a different position. And lastly, they drafted Caleb Wilson, tight end, UCLA. I gave this last pick, who's also Mr. Irrelevant, an A grade. Now I understand that he is Mr. Irrelevant, but the Cardinals needed a tight end pick to help the receiving core. So he may not be the most athletic or the best skill set, but to have him on the team, if he stays, can help in a spot that is highly needed. Overall, for the Cardinals, for their 2019 draft, I'd got to give it to them and say that their draft was okay-ish. I'm definitely giving them a C plus. They drafted players that they definitely needed, but I just felt like they drafted them in the wrong spots. They're drafting cornerbacks when they should have went safety, because there was a lot of talented safeties still there on the board. They drafted, and I'm not saying this because I don't believe that a guy like Byron Murphy is not talented. I'm just saying that they don't have any safeties that kind of way. So, you know, they did a great job drafting 2 wide receivers and stuff, but I just felt like, you know, they drafted certain guys in the wrong timing, and because of that, I give them a C plus. I can't give them a B, can't give them an A, definitely can't give them an A. You know, and so I hope that these players, they work out for the Cardinals, because they really need to for their air raid system. That is a wrap. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Endzone to Endzone, and always remember, hit like, subscribe, and as always, leave a comment of any specific topics you want to hear. And that's it, guys. Ahjuxue out.